Alright, hello math fans. Alright, what we're going to do in this lesson is we're actually going to pull everything together. So this is going to be mixed factoring. Alright, and everything that we've learned about factoring we're going to pull together. Well, the first thing you're going to do, which we've talked about in the past, so write these steps down. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to put it in standard form. Which you remember is descending order. Very important. It's got to be in descending order first. The second step is you got to find your greatest common factor. That is so important. You got to find that first, because if you don't, it can't be factored correctly. Okay, if you pull something out, or if you don't pull something out and you factor it, it may look like it's working to you, but it's actually not the correct answer. Alright, so you got to do greatest common factor. And the third step is basically you have to determine other types of factoring. Alright, so we have trinomials. Included in trinomials are perfect square trinomials, which we just learned. Okay, we also have difference of two squares. And then maybe you might have no more factoring. So you kind of have to look at all those, all right? But you've got to follow that form. You got to do standard form, then greatest common factor, then determine other types of factoring. You've got to keep that in mind always. Okay, I'll tell you, the thing that people tend to forget is they tend to forget the greatest common factor. You know, they just start looking at the problem and they just start going with the problem and they forget it. You know, you guys are good at doing the different types of factoring, but sometimes recognizing everything as you're doing it is somewhat difficult. All right, so let's just start out with a couple friendly problems here and see what you guys can do. Okay, if I gave you 2x squared minus 10x minus 48. Okay, is it in descending order? Yes, it is. Is there a greatest common factor? Oh, I recognize a 2, a 10, and a 48. They're all even numbers. I know I can pull the 2 out, and that is my greatest common factor. So I divide each of these by 2, and I get 2 parentheses, and then I get x squared minus 5x minus 24. Alright? Now what you're going to do is you're going to try and factor that x squared minus 5x minus 24. So, you know, you get your combinations. This is actually pretty mellow. Well, it's 1 and 1, but 24, it's a little more complicated. It can be 6 and 4, it can be 8 and 3, it can be 12 and 1, or sorry, 12 and 2, or it can be 24 and 1. So there's, you know, a couple of different combinations, but remember what I always told you guys to do. Use the stuff more in the middle. If that was like negative, you know, 30x, negative 50x, then I would say, yeah, use some of the bigger numbers. But I would start out with the ones that are more in the middle. So if I factor that, or attempt to factor that, don't forget that 2. That 2 always stays on the outside. So I'm going to put x and x, because 1x and 1x. And then I'm going to do our signs, of course. That's important too. You know, it's plus minus. And if I put 6 and 4, see if that one works. Again, I just have to check my OI. So outside negative 4x plus 6x is 2x. Nope, not good. I need negative 5x, or I need a 5x. It doesn't matter if I switch them, because I'll still get, you know, I'll get positive 2x, right? And or I'll get negative 2x, and it's not going to do me any good. So I'm going to try another one. How about x we'll do 6 and 8. So x plus, or 8 and 3. X plus 8, x minus 3. So if I do that, I get negative 3x plus 8x equals positive 5x. Oh, cool. It's positive 5x, and I need a negative 5x, so I just switch the signs. So my final answer is going to be 2 parentheses x minus 8 times x plus 3. That's it. Okay, so it's a little bit more work because you got to do greatest common factor first, and then you got to do trinomial, but that's how you do it. All right. Now I can check it if I wanted to. If you got time at the end of a quiz or end of a test, you can check it. The thing you want to do, math fans, is if you want to check it, you want to FOIL first. FOIL first. Don't multiply things by 2. Okay, FOIL first. So if I do that, I get x squared plus 3x minus 8x minus 24. So I combine my middle terms, so I get minus 5x minus 24. And then if I distribute the 2 to check, you don't have to do this. Again, this is the final answer, factored. Okay, but if I distribute, I get 2x squared minus 10x minus 48, which is exactly what we started with. Alright, so a little bit more work when you got that, but you guys are tough kids. Okay, so let's try another one here. How about 25 minus x squared? Okay, first step, descending order. So negative x squared plus 25. Now you're looking at this going, wait a second, these are opposite signs, but it's not quite a difference of 2 squares. Well, remember one of our rules with that first term, math fans, is no negatives as a leading coefficient. So that means I got to factor out a negative 1. So you get negative, and we don't usually put the 1 in there, right? So negative, and you get negative divided by negative is a positive, so it's x squared. 25 divided by negative 1 is minus 25. So that's factored as far as the greatest common factor. Now you look inside here and say, is that a difference? Oh, first of all, there are 2 terms, so you're looking for a difference of 2 squares. It is a difference of 2 squares, so it's going to be factored as x plus 5, x minus 5. You guys already know how to do that, and that's your final answer. Okay, it's pretty easy. How about this one? Negative 4x squared minus 16. Let's make it minus 16x. I'm going to put that in there. Alright, it's in descending order. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out a negative 4 because I can't have a negative here. But also, notice that they both have x's in them. So I can factor out the lowest degree of x is just an x there. So my greatest common factor equals negative 4x. So I can divide each of these by negative 4x. And I get negative 4x, parenthesis, negative divided by negative, that's positive, so it's just x. And negative 16 divided by negative 4 is positive 4. Okay, and then of course x divided by x is just 1, so it goes away. And that's your final answer. Alright, so it takes a lot of practice, but notice, and don't look at this guy right here and say, oh, gee, that's a perfect square. No, because it doesn't have an x squared. If that was x squared, that still wouldn't even be good because that needs to be minus there, right? So a lot of little things to look at when you're doing these problems. Alright, let's do another one here. Let's do 16x squared minus 4. Okay, what's greatest common factor? Well, first of all, it's in descending order. Yep, greatest common factor is 4. So I'm going to divide each of these by 4. And I get 4. And then here I get 4x squared minus 1. Alright, does everybody see that? I hope. And then once you're done with that, it's 2 terms. Again, is that a difference of 2 squares? It sure is. 4 is a perfect square, x squared is a perfect square, 1 is a perfect square. So I write that 4 on the outside, Don't forget that. And then I got square root of 4x squared is 2x, and 2x. Square root of 1, well, first of all, it's plus minus. Square root of 1 is 1 and 1. And that's your final answer. Okay. Let's try another one here. 13x minus x squared minus 42. Okay, well, you can tell that thing is totally messed up. It's not in descending order. So let's write it in descending order. Negative x squared plus 13x minus 42. Okay, what's the greatest common factor? Well, you can't have a negative here. So we're going to divide everything by negative 1. That's actually my only thing I can do. So I get negative, and then in parentheses I get x squared minus 13x plus 42. And then I see if I can factor that. Well, signs are going to be, right, this one's positive, so they're both negative because this one's negative 2. And then x squared, well, it's just going to be x and x. 42. 7 and 6. 21 and 2. 3 and it's nothing else. I guess just 42 and 1. Looks like it. Well, again, it's not a really big number, so I'm just going to go with the 7 and the 6. And if I check it, outside inside, minus 6x minus 7x is negative 13x. That's it. Beautiful. So my answer is right here. Negative parenthesis x minus 7 times x minus 6. Okay. Let's try a few more here. 10x squared y cubed minus 25x to the 5th y to the 4th plus 15x squared y squared. Okay, well, it's a trinomial. That's great. Got to put in descending order. So this one is, right, you add that up, that's 9, so that goes first. Negative 25 x to the 5th, y to the 4th. This is adds up to 5, right? We're looking at the exponents. So it's plus 10x squared y cubed. And then plus 15x squared y squared. So that is descending order. Now, we've got numbers and variables to look at. So the numbers are, our greatest common factor is going to be 5, but we've got a negative here. So the let me just write on the side here. GCF is negative 5. And remember, when you're looking at the variables, you look at the smallest exponent. Well, the smallest exponent for the x is x squared. This one has an x squared and that one has an x squared. So negative 5x squared. And the smallest exponent for the y is this one, which is y squared. Alright, so that's what we're dividing everything by. Negative 5x squared y squared. Okay, so we want to put that on the outside. And you got 3 terms inside here, so this is going to be 5x cubed y squared minus 2, the x's cancel, and then you just have y. And then minus 3, and everything else cancels actually. So this is what I have. Now, some of you guys might look at this and say, well, now let's see if I can factor this. You know, if I give you something that's pretty complicated like this, unless it looks something like, x squared plus 7x, plus 6, maybe something like that, you're not going to be able to factor that. You notice you got an x cubed y squared and just a y and just a number. Probably not going to be able to factor that. Okay? Unless, again, it looks something more like that. So that is your answer. It's just negative 5x squared y squared times 5 x cubed y squared minus 2y minus 3. And that's your final answer. Alright, that's not too bad. Okay, so let's try another one here. Again, it's just more examples, but you got to follow that pattern every time. All right, gonna make it a little nasty. Negative 50 minus 60x minus 18x squared. Brutal, brutal. Okay, unless you recognize that. Okay, let's first of all put it in descending order. So negative 18x squared minus 60x minus 50. These are all even numbers, so I definitely can take out a 2, and obviously because it's negative, I'm going to factor out a negative 2. And you always want to look to see if you can take out more, and remember, if you have even numbers at the end, you could have taken out more. So I factor out a negative 2, and I get 9x squared plus 30x plus 25. Now that looks like more of a problem that you can factor. Okay, it's got an x squared, an x, and a number, so let's give it a shot. 9 is going to be 3 and 3, or 9 and 1. 25 is basically 5 and 5, or 25 and 1. So I'm going to do negative 20 or negative 2 parenthesis. I know it's going to be plus plus. So we're going to do 3x and 3x. Try that one first, and then I'm going to do the 5 and 5. So if I do the OI, I get 15x plus 15x equals 30x. Beautiful. That's it right here, 30x. So my answer is this guy right there. Or is it? What did I tell you guys? If you have the same thing right here, right, this is the same, we call that a perfect square trinomial, so you need to write it as negative 2 parenthesis 3x plus 5 squared. This, math fans, is my final answer, not that one. So don't forget all the rules I taught you with difference of two squares and everything. Don't forget that. It's really important. All right, let's try another one here. 2x squared plus 8, or plus 8. So it's in descending order. Greatest common factor is 2. So I get 2. In the parentheses I have x squared plus 4. And you should look at this and say, oh, wait a second, is it a difference of two squares? No. They're both positive. It's a plus sign in between. So your answer is this right here. And I know sometimes people look at this and they take a 2 out and then they go, oh, you can't factor. Well, yeah, you can. You just took a 2 out. If you can take the smallest thing out of your problem, you have factored the problem. If you can't take anything out, then you can't factor it. All right, that's important. So the smallest thing, take out, it's factored. So let's try another one here. Let's do 10 minus 3x squared. Well, put it in descending order. Negative 3x squared plus 10. Okay, what can I pull out of here? Well, there's no number, there's no variable, but I can take a negative out. So I'll do that. Factor out negative 1. So negative parenthesis, and that becomes 3x minus 10. Is there anything we do with a 3x? Oh, I forgot the squared. Anything you can do with a 3x squared and a 10? Nope, it's not a difference of squares. There's no other number to take out, so your final answer is this. Remember, I told you, if you can take the smallest thing out, you have factored it. If there's nothing you can do, like if I give you 25 plus x squared, well, you're going to put it in descending order. So you're going to have x squared plus 25. And there's nothing you can do with that. So this problem, you literally, I mean, even though you wrote it this way, you literally can say you can't factor. Because there's nothing to do. There's nothing to pull out of there. Okay. Try a few more, and then that'll be it. Let's try 4x squared plus 20x plus 16. Okay, definitely take out a 4. So you get 4 parentheses x squared plus 5x plus 4. Okay, looks like a good possibility that I could factor, so you give it a shot. And so you have, that's just 1 and 1. And that's 4 and 1, or 2 and 2. So I'm going to do 4, and you're going to have x, and they're both positive. And, you know, sometimes you get just better at it. If I would put the 2 in the 2, I know I would get 4x when I did OI, so I'm going to put the 4 in the 1. Now if I check it, I get 1x plus 4x is 5x, which is exactly what we want here. So this is my answer. Alright, what about this one? 3x cubed minus 27x. Okay, well, greatest common factor is 3, so GCF equals 3x. You guys agree with that? Smallest variable is the x, and the number is 3, so I can divide each of these by 3x. So I get 3x, and I divide that, I get x squared. Divide 27 divided by 3 is negative 9, and the x goes away. And then you should say, oh, geez, I've got a difference of 2 squares. So 3x and x, plus and minus 3 and negative 3. And that's your final answer. Okay? So hopefully this is going well here, and you guys are kind of seeing what we need to do. Standard form, greatest common factor, and then just see how you can factor that after that. All right? So I hope you guys learned something, and like I said, you can have you just need to practice. It's a lot of practice with this. All right, math fans, have a nice day. Goodbye.